after a weekend of tragedy in the Channel and the official confirmation that 100,000 migrants have crossed to the UK in the last 5 years. We ask, has the UK's deal with France on small boats worked? Are they living up to their part of the bargain, or are we just throwing good money after bad? After a landmark deal between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron back in March, the UK agreed to give £478 million over the next 3 years. It's paying for a new detention centre in Dunkirk, extra French officers to patrol the beaches, and new high-tech kit to monitor the Channel. Just over half of migrant crossings are being stopped this year. That is up 10% from last year, but only just above 2021's numbers. And other parts of the deal aren't going quite as well. French police patrols are down by a fifth right now due to holidays, which is a bit of an issue, considering that these are the calmer summer months. The detention centre hasn't been built or even started. And the French policy of escorting some migrant boats into UK waters rather than stopping them has drawn criticism after 6 people died on Saturday when a boat sank. We're joined by France 24's correspondent Bénédicte Baviot. Good evening to you. I mean, that is the question, isn't it, really, is whether we're getting value for money?
Well, it's a lot of money, and indeed the French authorities are spending a lot of money as well. The phenomenon particularly started happening in 2018. Why? What changed? What changed is that the Channel Tunnel was actually much harder to get into for migrants. And it's called in French le verrouillage, locking up. So the fact that they could no longer get on lorries meant that they were going to find other ways, and so were the traffickers. It's a hugely dangerous crossing, as yet again we were reminded over the weekend. There have been tragedies almost every year since then, 2019, 2021. Looking at French figures, what's interesting is that the French authorities underlined that before, 3 out of 4 attempts were successful making it to English shores, whereas now it's 1 out of 3 attempts. Looking at the dismantling, very importantly, of networks of smugglers, which is really one of the key components. There's no quick fix. There's not going to be a quick fix. And anybody who thinks there is just barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. So in 2020, 12 networks were dismantled. In 2021, I understand there were 27, and in 2022, but we never hear about this in the United Kingdom, actually 32 networks were dismantled. And this is going to be part of the answer. It's not the answer, but it's part of the answer. These people are desperate, and the UK is still a huge magnet, and these people want to make it to the UK. They don't want to stay in France.
Yeah. And you say it's desperate, and of course this is also the problem about the smugglers. Of course, these are cash cows for them. They are making money.
Euros per boat.
Yeah.
About, I think it's something like 150 million made last year. I mean, this is, so whether it's Turks, Germans, Kurds, I'm hearing all kinds of different, it's coming through Belgium, the Netherlands, 150 kilometres of beaches. Yes, this deal has succeeded in stopping some of the desperate people. But once they're in the sea, what the French are saying is that the authorities, they will only intervene if they're needed to actually help rescue people.
Right, so over here we see that the French are escorting them into British waters. That's a different, they think differently in France.
Once the French government, well, France is part of the EU, which the UK is clearly not anymore. Yeah. So the only solution that will be found when I hear about a returns deal, that was on offer when the UK was part of the EU. But we didn't have this phenomenon. 45,000 people made it across, as we all know. We've gone past the threshold of, I think, now 105,000. I mean, the French authorities understand very well that obviously this is not desirable for anybody. I mean, I was reading one of the rescuers today was saying, it's in a business of death. We're not going to get used to bringing dead bodies back. Nobody wants to be in that. So yes, you can have drones, you can have planes, you can have extra patrols, extra intel from the British, which is helping a very great deal. What has been really a game changer, the expression, it's not a game, but is the fact that Rishi Sunak has become Prime Minister. Because under Boris Johnson and, of course, the brief tenure of Ms Truss, It was really sort of, some of the diplomacy was led by Twitter, as a famous letter published by Boris Johnson, Donnez-moi un break. What I think Steve Barclay was reminding people when he was pressed this morning on British breakfast television was that you can do all the cliches you like, but this is only going to get resolved with cooperation. So the blame game doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Do you think the fact that Prince Charles and Queen Camilla...
King Charles?
Oh, sorry, King Charles. That's the first time I've done that since the coronation. Do you think the fact that he's going over... I know it was postponed last time because of the...
pension reform protests.
The
In
protests.
3 words?
Exactly. Do you think that, despite the fact he's going at the same time as the Pope, but do you think that is a good thing?
Yes, that's a very good thing. Yes, it was rescheduled. It was supposed to be the 26th, 29th of March. I think it's now going to happen around the 23rd, 24th of September. There was a fear that the security could not be ensured, and therefore President Macron rang King Charles, and both governments then publicly stated, I remember it well, I was there in Downing Street to cover Benjamin Netanyahu and found myself within 5 seconds covering the cancellation there. It's very important for UK-French relations. What was significant just before also was the first Anglo summit. I was at the last one. Yes, that was with a previous Tory Prime Minister,
There've been a lot of
May. Well, no, there have been very few of them. They're supposed to be annual. So if you want to find a solution, you've got to talk, you've got to cooperate, and that has definitely begun. It's starting to show its fruits, as I was saying, with the dismantling of this lucrative, criminal, dangerous, horrible people who are making so much money out of desperation. It's a human problem, but it needs to be dealt with in a way that is comprehensive with that cooperation. And any future deal will be between France, ultimately, the EU, as part of, and then the UK. Yeah. But jumping up and down and thinking there are quick fixes is really not helpful.
Benedict, thank you very much. Benedict Pavio there. Well, the men and women of the UK's border force are at the sharp end of the crisis, but with nearly 17,000 migrants crossing this year and an increasing number of overloaded boats sinking, they have a colossal task on their hands. We're joined now by the former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force at Calais, Kevin Saunders. Kevin, you were no doubt listening to what Benedict was saying there. First of all, your thoughts on the UK-French kind of response here?
Well, I think your previous speaker made some very, very good points. It is imperative that we work together. We have to stop the migrants crossing. We have to break the gangs. And I'll be honest, I think the French are doing a very good job on the land. The big problem, unfortunately, is the French interpretation of the law of the sea, the lack of will, if you like, to put the gendarmerie maritime onto the channel, because that's what we need if we're going to stop them. We need the French to patrol with the Brits, turning the boats back to France. If we can do that, then we stop the problem, and everything else then should fall into place. But the French are doing a lot, and they have taken down a number of criminal gangs very successfully. They're doing a lot with the interception of boats coming into France via the Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium into that part of northern France. So they have to have some credit for what they've done, yes.
And also, actually, what Benedict was saying, it's funny, isn't it, how it had absolutely slipped my mind how before 2018, we used to see those desperate people hanging on, running after lorries and sometimes falling under the wheels. And of course, it has now moved to the boats. And that, of course, is what the traffickers do. They see what's happening and then they adapt. And that's another problem, isn't it? Because if you get police on the beaches, then they go to the rivers. If it comes to the rivers, they go somewhere else, because that's the problem.
Yes, that is the big problem. And Border Force are due a lot of credit, because it was Border Force that stopped the people coming through the Channel Tunnel and Calais and Dunkirk by using fencing. And the fencing that was used, a lot of the fencing that was used in France actually came from the UK. It came from one of the summits in the UK that after the summit finished, we shipped it off out to Calais and used it out there. And the French put it up, and the French and us, and I was there at the time, worked very closely together to stop people in lorries, and we did a cracking job. And this is why you're now seeing people on the boats, because we've plugged one gap, and they've now gone to another gap. And unfortunately, this is a gap that we can't control on our own. We need the French big time to help us here.
More drones?
Well, we've given the French drones to spot the boats and to spot the people coming off the beaches. We've given them some very nice, well, we've given them the money. They've purchased some very good beach buggy kit so they can race along the beach to try and intercept the people getting into the sea. But what's happened, the people smugglers have retaliated by using much bigger boats that will take up to 70 people. And they're not frightened to put 70 people on them either, as we saw over the weekend. And so more boats, even if less craft actually reach the UK, the numbers are the same or more because they're putting more people onto the boats.
Yeah.
And this is what we've really got to stop.